Today is October 15th, 2022. I want to talk about the situation in and around Ukraine. And I want to talk first about Elon Musk. Everyone's been talking about Elon Musk and this situation he is in because of Ukraine. Let's take a look at some of the headlines. This is from CNN. Bad timing. Elon Musk's company can no longer fund its vital service to Ukraine. They, of course, are talking about the Starlink network. These are ground terminals that communicate with a constellation of satellites in low Earth orbit. This is giving Ukraine the ability to connect to the internet and carry out communication on the battlefield. And apparently it has been very helpful. I have not heard details about this, but this is what I've heard, that it's very helpful. It's an indispensable part of Ukraine's war effort. And Elon Musk and SpaceX, who runs this service, Starlink service, and the constellation, they cannot continue paying for this. It's costing them millions and millions of dollars. They cannot continue paying for this. The Pentagon should pay for this. This is what Elon Musk is saying. And this is coincidentally or not, after Elon Musk proposed a peace deal between Ukraine and Russia. It was essentially the Minsk agreement, or more or less a Minsk agreement type solution. And despite all that Elon Musk and SpaceX have done for Ukraine, Ukrainians attacked him. From the government in Ukraine to ordinary Ukrainians and just people in general supporting Ukraine. They came out from under their rocks and they attacked Elon Musk. We're told that Ukraine is a democracy that reflects the best of what the West has to offer. And it's fighting against evil Russian authoritarianism. But clearly, in Ukraine, there is no room for different ideas. You're either on board and you do what you're told, or you're put on a kill list, because that's where I'm going with this. Elon Musk being put on a kill list. Let's take a look. This is Ava Bartlett. She's been covering this conflict mostly in the Donbas area. Really doing an excellent job. And she caught this and says, Musk added to Ukraine's Myrotvorets kill list, which includes 327 children. And it does. And it includes a lot of people that should not be on a kill list, if a kill list should even exist in the first place. I have been speaking and writing about this list for years after being placed on it in 2019, but now that Musk is on it and Roger Waters and others, perhaps the peacemaker list might itself be killed. And there is Elon Musk on the list. This is what an entry looks like on this list. And what does Elon Musk say? Is this list real? What's the URL? Well, the short answer is yes, it absolutely is real. And be warned, if you go to the page, I'm going to show it to you. It's going to be blurred out. But the first thing that you see when you go to this website is a collage of dead, mutilated Russian soldiers. They're dead bodies. And in big letters, it says, "Death to the Russian fascist invaders of Ukraine." So death to the Russian invaders. It is advocating violence and death to its enemies, Ukraine's enemies, in big letters, as clear as day. It is a real website. It really does say that. I'm going to show you the Google translation since it's blurred out. Right here, death to the Russian fascist invaders of Ukraine. This is more or less the lettering you will see on the front of the website. So there's that. It is real. The site has extremely graphic content. It advocates violence and death to Ukraine's political enemies, not just invaders, okay? Not just invaders, because again, Elon Musk was put on the list and then quickly taken off. Roger Waters is on the list, and I'm going to get into that because you would think this is something the Western media would talk about. Ukraine is supposed to be a democratic nation fighting against evil Russian authoritarianism, but Ukraine has a kill list. So how does that fit into the narrative? Surely the Western media would come out and condemn this. Surely Western leaders would condemn this and tell Ukraine to please take down this kill list. It is contradictory to what you claim you're fighting for. So what does the Western media do? They make excuses, they spin it, they deflect it. They are complicit in this because they are trying to cover up the true nature of this website. So let's look at this Newsweek article. Fact check. So immediately you see fact check. This means there's something that's true that the West wishes it wasn't, so they're going to fact check it and spin it so that it's not true. Did Ukraine put Pink Floyd's Roger Waters on kill list? Here he is. So the answer is yes. He absolutely is on the kill list. There he is. And so you would think the first thing they would say is true or yes, but no, that's not what they say. So let's go through this Newsweek article. First and foremost, at the top of Myrotvorets, it says, Center for Research of Signs of Crimes Against the National Security of Ukraine, Peace, Humanity, and the International Law, information for law enforcement authorities and special services about pro-Russian terrorists, separatists, mercenaries, war criminals, and murderers. Roger Waters is on this list. Which among those categories does Roger Waters fall under? So you can see how dangerous and how unacceptable a list like this is anywhere in the world, especially in the West, who is the self-proclaimed champion of human rights, freedom, and democracy. What does Newsweek say? Newsweek says, in a Rolling Stone magazine interview published in October, Roger Waters claimed to be on a kill list that is supported by the Ukrainian government. Waters said, I'm on the effing list, and they've killed people recently. When they kill you, they write liquidated across your picture. Well, I'm one of those effing pictures. Is that true? Do they say liquidated after they kill you when you're put on this list? Absolutely. Here is Daria Dugina. She was on this list, and they've written liquidated across her face, across her picture on her post here. So this is, and she's not a militant, she's not a terrorist, she's not a combatant. She just had views Ukraine didn't like, so they put her on this kill list, and then someone went and killed her. And then instead of condemning terrorism and murder, this website, Myrotvorets, they write liquidated, almost celebrating the fact that she's gone. She's been crossed off the list, problem solved. This is what Ukraine is really doing. This is the true face of how Ukraine, since 2014, has run its country, has run its internal political affairs and its foreign policy. So I just showed you that this claim that Roger Waters made is 100% true. You saw it with your own eyes. What does Newsweek say? While he doesn't clarify the finer details, the article's author suggests that Waters appears to be referring to the Myrotvorets list compiled by Ukrainians, which launched online in December 2014. So this has been around for a long time. To detail those they believe are enemies of Ukraine who have signs of crimes against the national security of Ukraine, peace, human security, and the international law. Waters' claims isn't true, but it isn't completely false either, the article says. No, it's 100% true, and everyone trying to claim that it isn't is complicit in this kill list, trying to cover up what it actually is. So this is what Newsweek says Myrotvorets actually is. It says, it is an NGO that keeps an open source database of persons that it deems to have promoted anti-Ukrainian narratives or acted to destabilize Ukraine's national security. Since the start of the war, it also keeps count of the Russian soldiers and agents killed on its territory. Is Daria Dugina, is she an agent who has been killed on Ukrainian territory? No. And again, I'm going to point this out again. That's not what it says. It says at the top of every page on the website that this is about pro-Russian terrorists, separatists, mercenaries, war criminals, and murderers. Which category does Daria Dugina fall under? Which category does Roger Waters fall under? What category does Elon Musk fall under? This is something Newsweek will never talk about. It is a kill list. It's a kill list of Ukraine's political enemies. It continues. It says it was founded by a Ukrainian politician. So a Ukrainian politician means a Ukrainian in the Ukrainian government. They created this list. So how is it not connected to the Ukrainian government? The Ukrainian government knows this politician created the list. If they were against it, they would take it down. They're not against it, although they should be, obviously, if they stand for any of the things they claim they do, but it is still up. I'm looking at it right now. So it was funded by a Ukrainian politician and activist. It has also been closely linked to other politicians, whom the Times of London, in a recent interview, referred to as co-founders of the project. While the identities of the project staff are kept secret, so zero transparency on top of it all, during that interview, they said that Myrotvorets is independent of the Ukrainian government and doesn't receive any state funding. Notably, official Kiev keeps its own separate list of people it labels Russian propagandists, to which a number of U.S. conservatives, including Tulsi Gabbard and Rand Paul, were recently added. I am also on this list. This is the Newsweek article about it. Tulsi Gabbard, Rand Paul placed on list of Russian propagandists by Ukraine. And if you scroll down, you will see political analyst Brian Berletic. Now, if this was the other way around, the Western media would be screaming. Human rights organizations across the West would be screaming about a Russian kill list. The leaders of Western governments would be coming out and condemning it. And they would also be citing it as justification for their continued military involvement in this conflict. So we know that the Western media, Western governments, they know that this is wrong, and yet they're sitting here defending it and also just blatantly lying about it. They're completely lying about it. What else does Newsweek say? It says on August 27, 2018, Waters was added to the unofficial Myrotvorets blacklist. How is it what makes it unofficial? They're just putting that in there to try to soften the implications of a kill list that the Ukrainian government knows about, cites, and its law enforcement agencies use to put people in jail or to pursue them legally, which Newsweek will admit. So here, the Myrotvorets list has no official standing in Ukraine, though Al Jazeera, citing the rights group Uspishnya Varta, reported that it had been used as evidence in more than 100 court cases against those suspected of involvement with pro-Russian paramilitary. So it's created by a politician in the Ukrainian government. The Ukrainian government's agencies use it as evidence in their kangaroo court cases against people, their political enemies. So what was Newsweek's fact check ruling? What did they finally determine in regards to this? Waters' characterization of the Myrotvorets website, if that is indeed the list he is referring to, as a kill list is inaccurate. Myrotvorets does not advocate violence against those on its database, and there is no conclusive evidence that it's ever been used as a kill list, as Waters claims. That is a blatant lie. You just go to the front page, the home page of Myrotvorets, and you will see in giant letters across the screen, death to the Russian fascists, invaders of Ukraine. They openly, enthusiastically call for death of their enemies, and then they list them all on this website. So this is Newsweek complicit in this crime against human rights, this crime against people's human rights. Newsweek is complicit because they surely went to the website. They saw the dead bodies on the front page. They saw death to Russian invaders on the front page. And they read the little description at the top of the page talking about how this is about pro-Russian terrorists, separatists, mercenaries, war criminals, and murderers. And they know that Roger Waters, Daria Dugina, Elon Musk, they know all of these people are none of the above, and yet they're still somehow on this list. And if they're going to pretend that that is not an issue and that somehow the Ukrainian government is not involved, even though they know about the list and they use it as part of their law enforcement activities, then they're just blatantly lying, and they're doing it in defense of something that is indefensible. Getting back to Elon Musk and his involvement in all of this, I had previously said that Elon Musk getting involved in Ukraine was a huge mistake. Sending Starlink terminals to the Ukrainian military was a huge mistake, especially since a number of them went to literal Nazi military formations. Azov are Nazis. They have a flag that is a Nazi symbol that they operate under. And that in itself was a huge mistake. It's just fundamentally wrong. It's wrong. But it's also unwise for another reason. You are getting involved in a US proxy war against Russia. It is a proxy war the West is losing. And the people involved in this proxy war in Ukraine are extremists. They will turn on you in a second. They're like a rabid dog. It's like trying to train a rabid dog and then walk it around the neighborhood. It's not a matter of if you'll get bit. It's a matter of when you will get bit. So Elon Musk's hand is right now in the teeth of this rabid dog that he was associating with. I also said that it was a big mistake for another reason. This US proxy war against Russia, whichever way it goes, we can clearly see that the next step is doing the same to China. Elon Musk has actually a very enlightened view of China. He sees them as human beings, which is something you can't say about many prominent people in the United States. And he has significant investments there. He believes in working with China, competing with China, but in a constructive way. And he does not go along with this zero-sum winner-takes-all approach that the deeply entrenched, unelected special interests driving U.S. foreign policy are pushing America toward. But look at what's going on with Russia. Look at how companies doing business in Russia are being forced to stop, to withdraw from those markets, no matter what the cost is to themselves or to the collective economy of the West. The exact same thing is going to happen in regards to China. In many ways, it already is. And I would say that Elon Musk's investments in China, those days are numbered, unless somehow he can do something to wake people up and to stop this collision course the US is on right now. It might have seemed like a good idea to jump on the pro-Ukrainian bandwagon. I mean, if you're ill-informed, you're busy, you don't have time to look into these things yourself, it might have seemed like a good idea to jump on the bandwagon, the pro-Ukrainian bandwagon, but it is hurtling over a cliff. Assuming that Elon Musk and everyone else on this bandwagon survives the fall, what they're going to find themselves doing is rolling toward an even steeper cliff. This is the collision course the US is on with China. And I have said that this is going to continue until these special interests driving US foreign policy now collapse and a different circle of US special interests take over, fill the void. And these would be interests that see America as working with the rest of the world, among other nations, rather than imposing itself upon all other nations. I would like to think that Elon Musk, SpaceX, and Tesla represent that. But I still saw him, with the Ukrainian flag and a heart and acting as if he's going to continue supporting Ukraine. So maybe not. Maybe he's just going to go over the cliff with them, and then he's going to roll off the cliff when it's time for all of this to start turning toward China's direction next. So that's the story with Elon Musk. And it just goes to show you the true nature of Ukraine, the Ukrainian government, and all of these people supporting it. The fact that they will see a blatantly toxic kill list and write entire articles trying to lie about it, defend it, and cover it up. It just goes to show you the true nature of the Western interests supporting Ukraine and the interests in Ukraine, the US itself installed into power to fight this proxy war for them. That is their true nature, and it's exposed over and over and over again. And this whole episode with Elon Musk is just the most recent example. And I hope that if nothing else is waking people up, maybe this will wake people up. What else is going on in Ukraine? This was just yesterday, October 14th, 2022, another security assistance package for Ukraine, $725 million. What is in this package? Let's go over it, and let's go over what they say they're giving Ukraine and what it actually means. More HIMARS ammunition, but no specific amount mentioned because, again, they are sending these rockets in very small numbers. And if you knew the real numbers, you would realize how unsustainable this is. They do mention the number of 155 millimeter artillery rounds they're sending, 23,000. Again, to an ordinary person, 23,000 sounds like a lot, but it's not enough for even 4 days of firing. Ukraine itself claims they fire 6,000 rounds a day. That's not even going to get them through a work week. 500 precision guided, 155 millimeter artillery rounds. They're talking about the GPS guided Excalibur, which is good at hitting fixed positions you know the location of on a map. Unlike Russia's guided artillery shells, which are laser guided and can hit moving targets, this is really only good against targets where they are fixed in position, you know where they are, and you can get close enough to fire this Excalibur round toward them. And Ukraine has been getting these Excalibur rounds all along and has not been helping them at all. 5,000 anti-tank weapons. They don't even say what type of weapon. Are they guns? Are they missiles? Are they mines? I don't know. But one thing I do know is, and I pointed this out many times before, the U.S. Army itself admitted that well-trained U.S. soldiers under training conditions hit targets, not destroy them, just hit them only 19% of the time. And if you're talking about poorly trained Ukrainian forces in war conditions, that number is going to be even less. And then you've hit it, have you disabled or destroyed it? So the percentage is even smaller still. We're talking single-digit percentages. So they're sending these huge numbers of anti-tank weapons, but that is the rest of the story behind them. This is why they're sending huge numbers of them. More anti-tank weapons than Russia even has tanks, but that's why Russia still has tanks on the battlefield. That is the reason why. They're sending more high-speed anti-radiation missiles, HARM missiles. These are supposed to be targeting and destroying Russia's air defense system. I have looked across opposition media for evidence that these missiles have done anything, and I have not seen them. They've claimed that they've taken out, like S-300 launchers, but these home in on the radar sets, not missile launchers. So where's the evidence that they're actually taking out radar sets with these? I have not seen it. They're sending 200 Humvees. A Humvee is it's a glorified SUV. It's not a replacement for the armored personnel carriers Ukraine has been using and losing. Infantry fighting vehicles, certainly not a replacement for main battle tanks. All of these are systems Ukraine is running out of, and all of these are systems the West has no more replacements for. And then finally, 2 million rounds of small arms ammunition. 2 million sounds like a lot, but it's if you're talking about one soldier having 210 rounds on them going into a firefight, and a very short firefight, this is only going to arm 10,000 men for a single day. So you can see that from this assistance package to the last one, to the one before that I've covered, the amounts become smaller and smaller. The type of assistance becomes less and less relevant. The DoD press release also talks about Germany sending a single IRIS-T air defense system. I've talked about this at length. This is one of 4. The other 3 are going to be sent over the course of next year. And I've talked about how an air defense network has to have many, many pieces. The more pieces, the better. You have missile launchers, radars, command centers. The more of these that you have, the more effective your air defense network is, the more it's going to be able to see and engage and over a larger area that it can protect. One system, 4 systems, we're talking single-digit numbers of air defense systems. This is not nearly enough to replace what Ukraine even had at the end of February 2022. Ukraine had air defense systems that were old, Soviet-era air defense systems, but on paper, they are superior to anything that the West is sending them now. And they certainly had many more of them than the West is going to be sending them, at least for the next couple of years. Now, speaking of Western air defenses, a friend of mine sent an article about the European Sky Shield initiative, and they were wondering, is this going to include Ukraine? Is Ukraine going to be able to take these Western air defense systems that they have and plug into this pan-European air defense, integrated air defense system? And the short answer is no, but anyway, let's just take a look. This is an announcement from NATO. 14 NATO allies and Finland agree to boost European air defense capabilities. NATO says defense ministers from 14 NATO allies and Finland came together in Brussels on Thursday, 13th October 2022 to sign a letter of intent for the development of a European Sky Shield initiative. Spearheaded by Germany, the initiative aims to create a European air and missile defense system through the common acquisition of air defense equipment and missiles by European nations. This will strengthen NATO's integrated air and missile defense. Now, a letter of intent to create this integrated air and missile defense system, this means that they haven't even negotiated, let alone signed contracts to build the equipment that will make up this integrated air defense system. So we are talking years from now for this thing ever taking shape. It goes on and it says, this commitment is even more crucial today as we witness the ruthless and indiscriminate missile attacks by Russia in Ukraine, killing civilians and destroying critical infrastructure. In this context, I strongly welcome Germany's leadership in launching the European Sky Shield initiative, said the NATO Deputy Secretary General. He added, the new assets, fully interoperable and seamlessly integrated within the NATO air and missile defense, would significantly enhance our ability to defend the alliance from all air and missile threats. So again, this is a long-term endeavor. If and when it ever comes online and is an integrated pan-European air defense system, years will have gone by, and Ukraine being included into it, that will be a debate way down the road. This is not something this year or next year. But you should keep an eye on it. You should keep an eye on how these sort of things develop. Now let's talk about the actual situation on the battlefield in Ukraine, or between Ukraine and Russia, now that Russia has this newly acquired territory. Russian missile and drone attacks continue. I think that this has gone beyond a retaliation for the attack on the Crimean Bridge. It really looks like a sustained campaign meant to completely destroy Ukraine's infrastructure ahead of what will likely be a significant ground campaign. And it's interesting how the West is portraying this as terrorism, when this is exactly how the United States and its allies, all of NATO essentially, this is how they go into other countries and dismember them in the process of taking them over. So the shoe is on the other foot. Now it's terrorism. Why isn't it terrorism when the United States and its allies do it? I just wonder what the explanation is for that. If we go to this liveuamap.com, very pro-Ukrainian, and we look, we can see that the front lines, again, are more or less stabilized. You see these blue icons here. I have heard reports, just as I was putting this together, that another push by Ukraine toward Kherson has begun. So we have to keep a real close eye on that. Elsewhere, you see all of these red rifle icons. This means Russia is on the attack now. So the front lines were stabilized at the end of Ukraine's push around Kherson and Kharkov, and now Russia is pushing back against this. And I said this was going to happen. I don't think that Ukraine's offensive is quite over yet. There are continuous rumblings of a Ukrainian offensive launched towards Zaporozhye that has yet to be executed. And I don't think that Ukraine is done attempting to push toward Kherson or toward northern Donbas. But what is going to happen, because Ukraine is suffering irreplaceable losses in terms of manpower and equipment, there's going to come a point where they cannot push any further. And Russia, who continuously fell back, yes, losing territory, but maintaining their manpower and their equipment, plus reinforcing it with 300,000 additional Russian troops and associated equipment, there's going to be a turning point where Russia begins an irreversible push back toward Ukrainian positions. Ukraine is not going to be able to stop them because they will have overextended themselves, they will have depleted themselves, and they will have nothing left to defend themselves. I have compared this to the Ardennes offensive, the German Ardennes offensive of 1944-1945. This was Germany doing a last-ditch, all-out offensive against Allied forces. All of their reserves were thrown into it. They lost all of those reserves. And the result was not only the offensive failing, but leaving themselves completely at the mercy of the Allied forces from that point onward. And the same situation appears to be playing out for Ukraine. Now, about Kherson, how serious is the situation in Kherson? Let's look at the map again here. You can see they're pushing along the Dnieper River. Kherson is down here, so that's quite a distance that they have to go. It's hard to tell whether their final goal is Kherson or maybe something a little bit closer. Maybe they're shaping the battlefield finally for the Zaporozhye offensive. Hard to tell. But I had been hearing these reports from across the Western media, reports like this from the BBC. Ukraine war, Russia to evacuate civilians from Kherson. And it says the Russian installed leader of Ukraine's southern Kherson region has called on civilians to evacuate, citing daily rocket attacks by advancing Ukrainian forces. He urged them to save themselves by going to Russia for leisure and study and asked for Moscow's help. His call was later backed up by Russian Deputy Prime Minister in a message on state television. Ukraine rejects accusations that it targets its own civilians. Well, that is the first time Ukraine is telling the truth. They're targeting Russian civilians. Not that that makes it any better at all. But is this Russia evacuating Kherson because they feel their defenses might break and Ukrainian forces could potentially take Kherson city? It's hard to tell. We should not assume that Russia will do everything within its power to hold territory that it has taken. Kharkov is a perfect example of this. Russia has proven that if they believe giving up the territory now will put them in a better position later on to take it back and more, then they will do so. So we have to really watch this very closely and see what actually happens. I am of the mindset that the Russian defenses around Kherson are very significant. I think they would try to avoid losing Kherson city. I think that would be very politically damaging, as bad or worse than the loss of Kharkov. The Kharkov region Russian forces were holding at the time. But it's something that I have repeatedly said when talking about Kherson, that even if Ukraine managed to take Kherson city, ultimately it would be self-defeating because they would come up to the Dnieper River, they could not cross the Dnieper River, and they would have depleted themselves, stretched themselves in the process. And when Russia is ready to do their counter-attack, Ukraine is going to have nothing to stop them from doing so. This reminds me of an exhibition match between an amateur boxer and a professional boxer. In the first couple of rounds, the amateur is going to throw everything they have at the pro boxer, trying to somehow knock them out, do something spectacular, something unexpected. And every once in a while, it does happen. But what happens more often than not is they exhaust themselves, and the pro boxer, conserving themselves for the last couple of rounds, they begin dismantling the amateur, and they will knock them out in the end. And this is what I see Russia doing. Russia is fighting this in a very rational, calculated way. They are less concerned with politics and headlines and more concerned with actually winning on the battlefield, which includes taking territory, giving up territory when it doesn't make sense to hold it, conserving your fighting capacity while whittling down your enemy's fighting capacity, because no matter how much territory the enemy has, if they have no fighting capacity to defend it, you are ultimately going to win. So let's keep all of this in mind. Let's keep a close eye, especially on Kherson. Depending on what happens with this offensive as it develops, it will tell us a lot about where Ukraine is in terms of what they have left with this all-out offensive. They obviously saved up a huge reserve, but they're burning through it. It's just a matter of how long it will take them to burn all the way through it. If you thought this video was useful, please like and share. Think about subscribing to my channel. It's free to do. It helps the channel grow. If you're watching this on YouTube, please check the video description below for other places you can find and follow my work. If you follow me on Telegram, I update that several times a day. Any development that unfolds around Kherson, I will report on it on Telegram before I do my next video, which might be a day or two. So find and follow me on Telegram. The link is in the video description below. Also in the video description below are all of the links that I referenced in this video, as well as for ways you can help support my work. I do not monetize my YouTube channel. If you see an ad pop up, please skip through it. It's not doing me any good at all. If you want to support my work, please do so through Buy Me a Coffee, through Patreon, and as a last resort, PayPal, because they are getting increasingly political and they're restricting access to people who have political views they don't agree with. But for the time being, you can still use PayPal. To everyone who has been helping me out, whether it's one-time donations, month-to-month support, or even if you're just sharing my work, I greatly appreciate that. I could not do this work without that. Contrary to what the Ukrainian government says, I'm not a Russian propagandist. I do not get funded by the Russian government to say the things that I do. I fully depend on my audience, and I also greatly appreciate that. So thank you again. And as always, thank you for watching.